Hi, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to talk about cross-promoting your apps. Okay, so today I want to answer a question from Nikolai Lukianov, which was asked earlier today. He said, "Hey Eric, do you have some advice on cross-promoting in our apps?" Now, I don't have any advice exactly, but I do have some experience with it, so I'll let you know. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about things we've done in the past, kind of what's worked and what hasn't, and so forth. So when we released the second app, the first app I released was EarSpy, which is still the biggest app. The second one was Mandarin Bubble Bath, which is a Chinese learning game, because I was interested in that too. So what I wanted to do was take some of the traffic we were getting from EarSpy and send that over to Mandarin Bubble Bath. So I'd read this book back in 2012 called App Empire by Chad Moretta. I don't know if you guys have read it. It was really big back then. And one of the things he talked about was nag screen. So when you open up an app, it will say, "Hey, why don't you go down and download this other app," and everything. So what I should have done was use AdMob, but what I actually did was, what I wanted to do was have like the similar thing, a pop-up. And the developers I had at the time, they were just getting to grips with Android, but so they didn't have any server knowledge either. So ideally what I wanted to do was have like a little server engine, like an API that I could put new apps into, and then it would sort of push those out to them, so the app would check for those. But I was far too busy to do that, and they didn't have the skills to do it. So what we ended up doing was I just created an XML file. For each app would have its own XML file, and I would put it on a web server, and the app, when it opened up, it would check to see if that XML file was available, like if it had an internet connection, and it would download it, and it would check all the nodes, and it would check to see if it's already showed one of those messages and how many days it's been since the last message. And then if it's been like enough days, then it would show the next one, and it would say like, "Hey, why don't you download this new app," or whatever. And it was like a really bad solution, right? There was loads of problems with it. First of all, you couldn't track who clicked on what, so we never knew how effective it was. It wasn't localizable, so even though we localized the app into different languages, we still had that English message that popped up, right? Because we didn't have, it was just an XML file. We didn't have anything, and the logic was really, really weird. It was XML, and I was kind of hand changing the XML, changing it by hand, and occasionally I might put a stray mark in there, and it would just sort of break it for everybody else. And it was ugly because it was just a dialog box with no images, no nothing. I mean, we could have made it more advanced, but later on, we had AdMob in the apps already anyway. So later on, I don't know why. It's one of these things, I don't know why I didn't think of it to begin with. But then we just started creating house ads. So now a house ad and AdMob, for those of you guys who don't know, is like an ad you can put in there for free. So it's an ad you can put in using AdMob's SDK, but it's like it's free in your own app. So you can have like if you're making money from ads, you could put like another ad in there, in the mix that says go to one of your other apps, and you don't have to pay for that one. And it's probably really good to to be able to do that cross promotion. You can do like banners and interstitials and all kinds of stuff like that, and that's what we ended up doing in the end. So we started doing that, and you could tell how often they've been clicked on, how often they've been served, all the analytics and stuff that you need, which is a lot better. And occasionally we still do that. Now, one of the big problems I had, though, again, not just the fact that we had like this half-ass infrastructure thing, was also that I was trying to promote something for one audience to another audience. First of all, it was probably stupid of me to go from the successful creepy spy app to an educational game, right? And the educational game was also very cartoony. It was called Mandarin Bubble Bath. It had, like, at the time, the early designs was it had like all the bubbles and a duck and all this kind of stuff. And then we had the spy app, warning, you may hurt your feelings and all that kind of stuff. Right, so people were opening up the spy app and thinking, they may have thought it was cool, they may have thought it was stupid, whatever, but then they were getting this ad that said, "Hey, come learn Chinese," right? And it was like, it just didn't mix. So this is one of the problems I have now too with some of the apps. Like I could say, take one of our Chinese learning games. There's no reason to try to get, to try to market, our Korean learning games or our, Spanish learning games in that app. But we're starting to get to the point where we have multiple versions of these apps, and we could start cross-promoting them that way. So it's trying to think about the niche and stuff like that. And you could always run a house ad and have it, take away. And of course, if you're making money from ads, you're basically using some of your inventory to push your own stuff, which you may or may not want to do, and something that I do sparingly. So, but we still do it from time to time. And don't forget that when you do put those apps out there, you do have that others by this developer, which looks interesting, and stuff like that. And think about the people who are downloading that one app. What would they like to go for afterwards? And don't do like I did and just go, I'll just go something completely different, a completely different audience. And I was tempted for a while to just split off my my Google Play and my iTunes account to have one focused at one market and one focused at another market, but it's really hard to do. And everybody I know who has multiple accounts, they've got multiple bank accounts, they've got all kinds of problems. So I'm just happy sticking with that one account. So anyway, I know that's probably not that helpful for you, but I think in terms of cross promotion, if you use the AdMob house ads, it's probably the best way through. And also don't forget about all the social media and stuff like that. You can share it to groups. You can there's all kinds of stuff that you can do. Anyway, that's it for today. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.